Good morning and welcome to TVP World on this Easter Sunday, coming to you live from Warsaw. My name is Alex Smolinski and these are the latest headlines. The Russian army is trying to create a general impression of a ceasefire, but continues attempts to inflict losses on Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said in a post on social media platform X. Zelenskyy added that 387 instances of shelling and 19 of assault by Russian forces were reported yesterday after Putin's declaration of the Easter ceasefire. The Russians also reportedly used drones 290 times between 6 p.m. and midnight on Saturday. As of 6 a.m. today, the Ukrainian Defense Forces reported 59 cases of shelling and 3 combat engagements in the Pokrovsk and Novopavlivka regions. Drone and artillery strikes were also reported in the Kursk region. Zelenskyy added that Ukraine is still open to extending the ceasefire for another 30 days after its end on midnight. Vladimir Putin has worked with 5 American presidents during his 25 years at Russia's helm. His approach to the U.S. has varied depending on who occupied the White House. But analysts say he has shown a consistently calculated approach, frustrating and alarming Washington with his repressive, expansionist iron rule. But as peace talks over Russia's war in Ukraine hang in the balance, some wonder if the current U.S. president's unpredictability will outwit the Russian leader, or whether in fact Putin is playing Donald Trump. Our journalist John Todd has prepared a special report on this. Here's an excerpt, and you can tune in for the premiere at 11:15 a.m. here on TVP World.
I can't understand what he wants to do. It's unbelievable that he made.
I think his overarching strategy is consistent, which is to weaken global U.S. influence and also create divisions within the West and while securing Russia's geopolitical interests.
But we can also see that somehow the personal dynamics mean a lot. So his personal interactions with the U.S. presidents have been showing quite a variance.
What we see on the ground is Putin just continues doing what he was doing and things did not actually change. So President Trump has been fooled.
More than 500 prisoners of war are making their way home to be reunited with their loved ones following Saturday's swap between Russia and Ukraine. A total of 452 Ukrainians have been exchanged since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. The latest prisoner exchange, mediated by the United Arab Emirates, involved the return of 246 Ukrainian servicemen and 31 injured prisoners of war. More than 200 Russian prisoners were returned to Belarus and are now awaiting transfer to Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy released a statement on Telegram in which he said that 277 Ukrainians have returned home and thanked the United Arab Emirates for the mediation. Amid mounting legal pressure and a conviction for undermining Bosnia's constitutional order, Milorad Dodik is turning to global power plays. The Republika Srpska leader is pitching a lithium deal to Washington, seemingly in a bid to ease international scrutiny, despite questions over the actual size of the mineral deposits.
Bosnian Serb leader Milorad Dodik, recently sentenced for undermining Bosnia and Herzegovina's constitutional order, is looking for ways to tame international scrutiny. His latest strategy? Proposing a lithium deal to the President of the United States following the discovery of mineral deposits in Republika Srpska last year.
Seeing how important this is to America, this mineral story, we thought, let's try it.
Dodik would collaborate with the devil himself to get rid of the accusations and find protection. Whether it's Trump or Putin or someone from the European Union, it doesn't matter. He'll try to trade the lithium deposits for his personal freedom. But I have to disappoint the audience that thinks there are huge amounts of lithium. There are only traces of the metal.
Bosnia and Herzegovina is divided into two entities, the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina and Republika Srpska, along with Brčko district. Dodik is the president of Republika Srpska.
Republika Srpska is a country.
Dodik's response to his possible arrest has ranged from threats of armed resistance to declarations of independence for Republika Srpska. This stance has sparked criticism from EU's top diplomat Kaja Kallas during her visit to Bosnia and Herzegovina in early April.
Republika Srpska leadership is undermining the constitutional and legal order.
On Friday, Dodik argued that should the second instance court uphold his conviction to 1 year in prison and a 6-year ban on political activity, he would proceed with his political career anyway. If not as president of Republika Srpska, then as prime minister, ignoring that this too would be in violation of the ban.
He already does it every day. In the meantime, he's visited Israel, Russia, and Serbia, defying not only the constitutional order of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also the decisions of the court, the prosecutor, and the state police, who are supposed to arrest him.
Dodik has announced that he will visit Russia once again on May 9th for the Moscow's Victory Day parade, quote, no matter what Kaja Kallas says. The EU's top diplomat had earlier warned leaders of EU candidate countries not to travel to the Kremlin on that day. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Gatabiszczan.
Poland's Interior Minister Tomasz Siemoniak says security along the country's border with Belarus will be reinforced using a €52 million grant from the European Commission. His comments follow reports earlier this week that Minsk is inviting 150,000 Pakistani workers to Belarus, fueling fears that the regime of Alexander Lukashenko could be preparing to escalate its hybrid illegal immigration war with the West.
Polish officials and the country's interior minister Tomasz Siemoniak survey the border with Belarus during an early Saturday visit. The minister welcomed a €52 million investment by the European Commission in Poland's border security.
There is no indication that the hybrid aggression by Russia-backed Belarus will stop, so we will take further measures.
Earlier this week, it was reported that Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko has invited 150,000 workers from Pakistan to fill a labor gap following a meeting with Pakistan's Prime Minister in Minsk. Last weekend, Polish border guards spotted men in Belarusian military uniforms accompanying a group attempting to illegally cross the border into Poland. Analysts say the mass invitation could be used to fuel Russia and Belarus's hybrid war waged via illegal immigration at the EU's eastern border.
That's got hybrid activity, hybrid warfare written all over it based on a precedent that he set with past actions.
If people are ammunition, they just basically got permission to reload and in fine style. And the question of where does that 150,000 people go? I would be very concerned, not just if I'm Poland and the Baltics, but Western Europe should also look at this with a very sanguine eye and take steps to remediate.
Siemoniak said Poland's border is now 98% effective, raising concerns that Moscow and Minsk may target elsewhere along the EU's eastern frontier. Meetings are planned with Finland, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania to ensure a unified, impenetrable approach. John Todd for TVP World.
The Kremlin is offering young people in Estonia free trips and other perks, hoping to use them later to influence politics. A new report by Estonia's Internal Security Services lays out that warning. The report says Russian channels are targeting youth with free online and in-person programs, competitions, excursions, and Olympiads, all under the guise of legitimate opportunities. Estonia's Internal Security Service says this kind of youth recruitment remains a priority in the Kremlin's strategy of division. The report also warns that universities are hotbeds for intelligence gathering by undercover officers. Iran's foreign minister arrived in Rome on Saturday for talks with the United States on limiting Tehran's nuclear program. The Iranian minister held indirect negotiations through mediators with President Donald Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff. Saturday's talks followed a first round held in Oman last week. Speaking in Moscow on Friday, the Iranian foreign minister voiced skepticism about U.S. intentions, but said he remains open to continuing diplomacy. Since returning to office, President Trump has pursued a high-pressure campaign to curb Tehran's nuclear ambitions and has threatened military action if the talks fail. And President Donald Trump has hit out at a U.S. politician who visited a man wrongly deported to Central America, calling him a fake. This verbal assault comes after Senator Chris Van Hollen met Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland father who's now being held in a maximum security prison in El Salvador.
Cheers of support as Senator Chris Van Hollen hugs the wife of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The U.S. Senator touched down in Virginia on Friday after visiting Garcia, who's in a prison in El Salvador after being wrongly deported by the Trump administration.
It's good to be home. Now we need to end the illegal abduction of Kilmar Abrego Garcia and bring him home too.
Van Hollen responded to the dispute over Garcia's wrongful deportation and imprisonment and to Donald Trump's disregard of the American judicial system. The U.S. Supreme Court has directed the Trump administration to facilitate Garcia's return after Washington acknowledged he was deported because of an administrative error.
That people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States of America.
Garcia's lawyers say he has never been charged with nor convicted of any crime. It is the latest round in an increasingly bitter battle over Trump's flagship plan to deport foreign criminals using a wartime law. The U.S. president hit out at Van Hollen and claimed Garcia had a bad record.
He's a fake. I know him. I know them all. They're all fake. And they have no interest in that prisoner. That prisoner's record is unbelievably bad.
In another challenge to Trump, the Supreme Court on Friday temporarily halted deportations of Venezuelan migrants under the wartime law.
Crowds gathered in London on Saturday to protest a recent Supreme Court ruling that says trans women are not legally defined as women under the law. The protest was organized by LGBT rights activists. Wednesday's decision ruled that under the Equality Act, the definition of woman is based on biological sex at birth. That means a legal sex change does not guarantee the same anti-discrimination protections as those granted to biological women. Critics say this interpretation could lead to tighter restrictions on trans women's access to services and spaces designated for women. Orthodox Christians have conducted the Holy Fire ceremony at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. The church is built on the site where, according to the Bible, Jesus Christ was buried. Worshippers erupted in joy as the flame was lit. A fire many believe is ignited by the Holy Spirit, symbolizing hope and renewal. The flame is then passed among the faithful and flown to Athens, where it's distributed to Orthodox Christian communities around the world. The ceremony draws Christians from many different denominations. And with that, we conclude this edition of the World News. But as always, do stay tuned to TVP World for more breaking news, updates, and commentary.